Welcome to High Vibe Astrology. This is Jennifer. Thank you for joining me as we take a look at the Leo new moon drawn up for August 4th, 2024 at 7:13 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're new, thank you for finding this channel, for being here, and for supporting this community with your positive energy. If you are listening for the first time and haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. Hit the like button and share these messages as you feel guided. These are all free and easy ways to support this channel. Astrology charts always tell a story. They are a snapshot of the universal energies and promise that is built into that chart and embodied by that person, place, or event. Not everyone lives up to the promise in their chart, so it's important to get a feel for the consciousness of the person you're reading for. You can always tell the level of consciousness within a person by whether or not they're using their gifts for the highest good. And how they're approaching life is what sets up how the transits are going to impact their life. Whatever transiting planet is making contact in your chart, you always have to look at where the planet is in your natal chart and how you are expressing it or using its energy. The transiting planet will unlock what is positive or unleash what remains in the shadows, what is perceived as negative. If you're living up to your promise and potential, then even the challenging transits will ultimately manifest positive results for you, no matter how it looks and feels right now. On the flip side, if you're misusing that energy by trying to control another's experience, it's only going to backfire. It reminds me of the verse, "You will know them by their fruit." It's true for everyone, no matter how much fame and notoriety they have. In fact, it probably goes double for those who hold a leadership role. The ones who are able to go the distance are those who epitomize good things come to those who wait. Those who grasp and cling, pathologically lie, persistently deflect and project their atrocities onto their opposition, are in for a very rude awakening as Pluto finishes its tour of Capricorn and enters an opposition with Mars in early November. When that opposition occurs, it'll have that full moon effect of exposing all dark deeds, all atrocities committed against life. Transits are triggers that activate areas of our chart, much like trigger point therapy or neuromuscular therapy or acupuncture. It might sting a little at first contact, but if you're living up to your highest potential, you're going to find and maintain your balance with unwavering resolve, and you will stay on course. For this Leo new moon chart, Leo being the sign of the heart and the innocent child, I was guided to pull from my Rumi deck, and Sacred Soul Sister is the message that came through. This message emphasizes the importance of refining our communication skills so that we can pick up on the subtle cues from spirit. This type of communication means that we have to listen, observe, and go into silent mode so that we can actually receive those messages and better understand the language of spirit through our intuitive faculties. In this chart, Venus is in the first house, and it represents that sacred soul sister, teaching us how to discern those messages from spirit, with Mercury in Virgo right next to her. Venus is also aspected powerfully by Uranus and Sedna, forming a square to these planets. This contact seeks to balance a need for freedom and independence with the need to give and receive love. Venus has to do with what we value in life, and this square brings out the tension between that need for connection and the desire to be free. But it also speaks to the fact that what we value is our freedom. Sedna's energy is contributing an otherworldly dimension. And also, as I've said so many times, Sedna's energy demands a reverence for all life. and demands divine justice for those who commit atrocities. Combined with Venus, Sedna is saying, do you value your own immortality? Or are you playing fast and loose with the magnetic qualities and attraction Venus provides without regard to the deeper aspects of life? Sedna is the long game. Venus moves quickly. So this combination, this square between Venus and Sedna, is asking us to value what truly matters and allow Spirit to show you the larger panoramic view instead of just being caught up in the all that glitters mode that is not going to last. So choose wisely in how you use these energies. If you want to be happy in the long run, instant gratification is not the answer. This is particularly applicable with the yod that we see from Neptune and Pluto, the outer transpersonal planets, to Venus, the focal point. And these outer planets, or what we call transpersonal planets, bring out the intangible and subtle cues we receive from Spirit, those signs, symbols. This requires an intelligence that sees beyond the limitations of logical thinking, and this aspect in particular requires refinement of that intelligence in order to receive those subtle nudges from Spirit. Neptune in Pisces represents the soul's longing for the experience of oneness with all life. That's the high vibe side. On the other side, the low vibe side, it is pure illusion and deception. In the 8th house, it's requiring attunement to the spiritual realm and lessons about using spiritual power wisely and being able to see through the illusion and to use this energy for the good of all rather than selfish gain. Pluto represents the soul's rebirth and sits in the 6th house, where it requires that we acknowledge that spiritual power dwells within our body temple. This is the house, the 6th house, of body-mind-spirit connection. Anytime Pluto's involved, or Sedna for that matter, the prerequisite is always death of the ego, and anything that the ego has become overly attached to for its own self-aggrandizement. And just a word about transits here. Transpersonal planets are the planets whose positivity can only be unlocked when we commit our lives in service to the greater good. If anyone's doing anything for selfish gain, greed, instant gratification, power, etc., all they're doing is unleashing Pandora's box on themselves. And even if they're fooling some people in the moment, they are certainly not fooling Divine Source. It's only a matter of time before karma catches up to these people. Now back to this yod from Neptune and Pluto. This energy speaks to the fact that we had better wise up to the fact that not all we see with our physical eyes is the whole story. It is not the whole truth. I say it often, but it bears repeating. 99.999% of all reality is unseen. It is unknown. It still remains in that yet-to-be potential. We have to relinquish this need to know everything, and also be humble enough to realize that what we think we know is a mere fraction of what is really going on. I feel the need to recall the oracle that I drew for the United States solar return chart. There was the Air Guardian, which basically warned us about seeing through the surface appearance of things to the deeper truth unfolding. And then the Animal Guardian, who reminded us to trust and follow our instincts. Sometimes Spirit requires of us to be a little irrational, especially if we're dealing with irrational people. I mean, when you're facing a pack of wolves who are dressed in sheep's clothing, you might just need to behave like a sheep who is in wolf's clothing. Sometimes you gotta tap into a fierceness that feels a bit uncomfortable unless you want to get eaten by that pack of wolves. It is impossible to reason or bargain with pathological liars and masters of deceit. but we can be our own spiritual ninja, using energetic martial arts, which allows the wolves to come close enough and then turn their own energy back on them like a boomerang. For those of us who feel like we've been the target of psychic attacks, spiritual attacks, or anything of that nature, it's time to invoke divine source, love, light, wisdom, to see the panoramic view, to stand strong with unwavering faith, and allow Spirit to simply turn that energy around and return it to wherever it came from. So the Leo new moon in this chart sits in the 12th house, which is the native house for Pisces, and is a highly intuitive house. Of all the houses, this is the most hidden, intangible, dreamlike, spiritual, and psychic. It's also the house of tying up karmic cycles, the house of hidden enemies and self-undoing or self-sabotage. So you better be working your light for the highest good, or you may find yourself lost at sea. This new moon is making harmonious connections to the nodes of the moon and therefore supporting your destiny path. When we look at the North Node in the 8th house, this is accepting the path of change and recognizing that the spiritual realm is a substantial part of our journey. What we see and take in with our physical eyes is only the tiny tip of the iceberg. The North Node here is calling us to dive deeper and to see what lies way beneath the surface of things. Venus rules the South Node in Libra, and it sits in the 2nd house. This is the house of material gain and of the 5 physical senses. The South Node here represents that there has been an unhealthy attachment or overemphasis on physical values only, to the detriment of spiritual transformation, change, and soul growth. Life isn't only about material acquisition. We've got to stop focusing on only the 1% that we see with our physical eyes. It's time to wise up, to embrace our entire being, which is body, mind, soul. And we swim in a sea of consciousness with each other that is vastly a mystery to us still. This conjunction between Venus and Mercury in the 1st describes a relationship between the heart and mind that feels like two neighbors that just moved in and don't know each other very well, but are starting to communicate. Mercury in Virgo symbolizes analytical and critical thinking, discernment, while Venus in Leo represents a desire to radiate joy, to be seen, to be heard, and appreciated. Virgo is the hermit, not really needing or wanting attention, and Leo is the entertainer who relies on its applause and who wants to be in the spotlight. But they are conjunct, side by side, working together. Both of these energies are informing our identity because they sit in the 1st house. The low vibe of Venus in Leo is someone who loves attention just for the sake of attention, while the low vibe of Mercury in Virgo is someone who can only accept as real the tip of the iceberg, things that can be measured under a microscope. The high vibe of Virgo accepts that innate wisdom in the body temple is also informing our reality. When both of these energies are balanced, we have the best of both worlds, a wise mind and a joyful heart. A great omen in this chart is that we have a trine from Chiron to the ascendant and widely to Venus as well, connecting from the 9th house of beliefs. We are healing our worldview, especially as it connects to Venus, our values, and that Leo ascendant, the heart that is guiding us. This contact also means that we are healing certain beliefs around our self-image, our identity. How do we choose to see ourselves? Is it strictly physical? Or are we finally learning to respect our spiritual nature? Mercury forms a square to Sedna and Mars, and this speaks to me as the need to call a spade, to get real honest in our speech without feeling the need to wound with our words. Sedna's high vibe here is reminding us of just how powerful our words are and to choose them wisely. Mars rules the North Node in the 8th house, a hidden house, but it itself is occupying the 10th, which is a very visible house. It feels like the entire theme of this chart has to do with accepting the reality that what has been deemed supernatural, impossible to manifest, irrational, insignificant to our physical reality is actually a very misguided perception. All that comes from the spiritual, supernatural world has a direct impact on what we see and how we are moving through this physical dimension. So wouldn't you think that we would want to get a grasp on just what's operating behind the scenes, beneath the surface, and align ourselves with spirit, with that 99% of all reality? Sedna's contact to Venus definitely brings the spiritual and otherworldly into our immediate expression and identity. Sedna embodies that mystery that I've been alluding to and that has, been weaving itself throughout this entire message. Last but not least, we have Saturn in the 8th house, still retrograde in the sign of Pisces, and it is making a square to Jupiter. This is the age-old battle between authority, represented by Saturn, and faith and optimism, represented by Jupiter. Hard aspects between these two planets describe tests of faith and philosophy. Jupiter wants to expand our faith. Saturn wants to bind and restrict, at first, until we take back our power. And because it's sitting in the 8th house, this is precisely what this test is addressing. It is an initiation, and we have to realize that we have the right to express our beliefs without being bullied, without being bossed around. The 8th house itself is the place where a battle for the soul is taking place, and each soul must confront its own deepest, darkest fears. That of loss, annihilation, abandonment, abuse, etc., because this is the house of life and death. And, to put it simply, of good and evil. One choice, one road leads to less life, and the other leads to more life, rebirth, regeneration. So, this is the house where there is no gray area. This is why I've talked about the Scorpio energy in so many of my videos and why I assign Mars to the Scorpion, Pluto to Phoenix, and Sedna to the Eagle. But Mars also has a positive side, as all planets do. It is the warrior, the protector, and in the collective right now, that is expressed through the military, police, our firefighters, and all the brave men and women who serve in that capacity. So that is what I have for you, but I will be back with a video on the Aquarius full moon, August 19th. I'm also going to do a video on the USA's Mars return, August 21st. It's a 2-year cycle involving those Martian qualities I just mentioned. And then there is a massively powerful opposition between Mars and Pluto that begins in early November. So I'm going to do a video on that as well. With these energies, life is never going to be the same again. We cannot go back. We are literally at the point of no return. So buckle up, warriors, because it is going to be a bumpy ride between now and the end of the year and even into the spring of 2025. But it will be so worth it when we, the children of light, take back our sacred earth and celebrate true freedom for everyone across the globe for the first time in multiple millennia. So thank you for tuning in. I hope that you will stay for the Oracle message. and the planetary frequencies that follow, and I look forward to being with you next time. Bye for now. Sacred Soul Sister, when you are conscious, a cloud of sadness surrounds you. When you are beyond consciousness, the moon rests in your arms. When you are conscious, the beloved moves out of your reach. When you are beyond consciousness, the ecstasy of love moves your way. When you are conscious, you are depressed like fall. When you are beyond consciousness, the winter cold feels like spring. All your wavering is due to your longing to be stable. Look for instability until you become stable. Rumi. I am your other self. I am with you always, your partner on the soul journey. I am the you that you do not see. I am the you that speaks through intuition and instinct. I whisper and sing and shout my crazed truth-telling to you, through your dreams, through your body. I am the you that is wise, that trusts in life, that knows. I am the you that sees reality rather than appearance. I am the you that knows how to be happy and free. There is a valid point of view that we travel this path of our life journey alone. Our deepest descents into the psyche happen alone. We meet death alone and come into the world alone. And yet, there is a vaster perspective that we are never alone, that it would be impossible to really be alone. We are connected to all of life, and there is no such thing as being alone in reality, only in limited and temporary perception. As if such community were not enough, there is a partner, an ally who journeys with you, from birth to death and beyond again and again. You have a sacred sister, a sister of your soul. She weaves the stories of truth through dreams and insights that come upon you as if from nowhere. Perhaps they drop into your mind or seem to erupt from within you, but that is her talking to you, demanding or reassuring, depending on what the occasion best calls for at the moment. Her truths may seem overly dramatic, so you may discount them as workings of an overactive imagination. Or perhaps her truth tales are so subtle you dismiss them as meaningless, fleeting fancy. The wise ones know, however, that the truths of the sacred soul sister are powerful, relevant, and worthy of time and attention. They know her oftentimes strange and startling offerings hold the keys to unlock entire worlds, to open up new realities, and to transform the nature of our existence from the deepest and most esoteric spiritual levels to the most palpable, practical, daily realities of our living bodies in the physical world. Your sacred soul sister is your partner in consciousness. Make no mistake, she is you. She is just the part of you so great you cannot always see her from your conscious mind. It is sort of like the eye of the dog trying to see its whole self, which is a bit tricky, for as it moves to see its rear, so the rear is moved along too. So rather than direct perception, the sacred soul sister is met through reflection. She can be received in those moments of rest where great ideas are born. She is a genius, you see, vastly creative and inspired. Her worlds are those we access in sleep and meditation, or absorbing engagement in activity where the mind can relax and drop into realities far more vast than those of daily life and be replenished. To tap into her wisdom, to distill a teaching from the fragmented memory of a dream or a subtle feeling experienced in meditation requires that you walk with her gait and not the fast-paced, forward-moving canter of your conscious and intellectual mind. Her gait is meandering and apparently unstudied. She is in deep consciousness to feel for truth of movement, to allow for what is emerging to express itself through her. And she is listening rather than demanding to know, to force, to speak, and to direct. To receive her genius and benefit most fully from it requires a willingness to surrender logic and open up to inspiration, to become empty, to let the mind soften and become receptive, open and permeable. She delivers questions that lead to answers, but not according to demands issued by an insecure and fearful mind. She offers what is genuinely needed and answers the deepest questions of the heart. She is trustworthy, the sister. She cannot betray truth. Therefore, she can be relied upon as a faithful way-shower for the heart. So to commune with her, wise as that impulse is, requires that you learn the ways of her world and the strange symbolic language she speaks. She will never tell you what you already know. Why be so inefficient? No, she prefers to educate, elucidate, intrigue, and beguile, as you are drawn into far more beautiful, powerful, and helpful truths. So in her world and in her language, you must suspend your need to immediately understand. Let yourself absorb the imagery, the feelings, and the possibilities, to dwell, ponder, and be permeated by the wisdom. The appearance of a horse may signify your own spiritual being, and the appearance of you may signify a false sense of identity, and not the real you at all. You may see desert landscapes and moonlit nights in your dreams. When so much inner growth is happening, you will soon bloom like the springtime. You may dream of charging up hills with great energy, when in your physical world you can barely muster enough strength to get out of bed in the morning. What does all this mean, this apparent contrary, world upside down, nothing is as it seems symbolism? The meaning is the communication, and the communication is received in response, in reflection, in quietness and rest. And you must trust her and trust yourself. When something needs to be known, so it shall be. This is necessary so much less than what we expect. Your lack of knowing is not ignorance. Your unknowingness is your bowing to life with trust. She has come to you through this oracle to remind you that everything is all right, that she has your back, no matter what appearances may seem to be in your more limited dog's eye consciousness in the light of day. She is guiding you with her wider knowledge through the circumstances and situations that are ultimately going to free you into a greater love than you have ever known, no matter whether you feel like a rat in a maze or a bewildered drunk stumbling through labyrinthine back alleyways, trying to find your way home again. No matter how out of control life may seem, she is letting you know all is proceeding just as it should, and that her will shall manifest. Her will is your wholeness, your completion. Her will must manifest and shall, because her will is nature, it is growth, it is God. She is God in you now. Remember that, and you'll realize, if you don't mind the ending being told before the last chapter, that everything's going to be okay. This oracle comes with particular guidance also. You know something deep in your bones, whether knowing how or why, or without particular reason, you just know. It doesn't make sense, but you know. It may be joy that you know. It may be that you know to avoid a certain situation. It may be that something is going to work out beautifully, despite appearances to the contrary, at a particular moment. It may be that you are meant to take a certain path. You just know. This oracle comes as confirmation that your knowing, mysterious as it is your sacred soul sister talking through you. Trust it and act, or not, accordingly. Sacred honoring ritual. Kneel or sit comfortably, preferably on the ground, or somewhere you feel grounded and anchored to the earth. That could be on the floor if practical. Rest your hands on the ground or on your legs and say aloud, I call upon the sacred sister of my soul, the shadow priestess of wisdom in the temple of love, You guide me to love, and under the merciful grace and protection of Rumi, who loves me unconditionally, our relationship is one of respect, care, and divine guidance. May I be blessed with receptivity to your genius and capacity for the grace of growth. So be it.